Hi, it's Money44 here, and today I invite you to a review of the Specna Arms SA-X02 replica in half tan. Replica for the review was provided by Gunfire. PCC replicas, that is pistol caliber carbines, have already established themselves on the market for good. And since every company wants to have a product in this category, Specna Arms has finally put out its X-series models in the EDGE 2.0 version. Compact carbines made of metal that will be great for short distances and engagements, and which do not lack such things as quick spring change system or motor access, programmable MOSFET or flat hub backing. Personally, I'm a big fan of such designs, and I couldn't wait for the X-series from Specna Arms. And I won't say, I hope this replica will live up to my expectations. But to find out, I have to take a closer look at it. So in today's review, as always, we'll see how the replica is built and what features it has. We'll take a closer look at the gearbox and conduct shooting tests. But as standard, let's start with a small unboxing. In a black cardboard box with carrying handle, we will find Specna Arms catalog, a leaflet with QR code for the replica's manual, a set of Specna Arms stickers, Gate Aster programming card, battery adapter from TDNs to small Tamiya, Wicker M90 spring, ramrod, 2 mid-cap S-Mag magazines, and the SA-X02 replica. Let's take a closer look at it. The replica with folded stock measures just over 60 cm, and with the fully extended stock, its length reaches about 69 cm. With the magazine but without the battery and ammo, the replica weighs about 2.4 kg. The majority of the replica is made of metal. Aluminium is used for the front in Nemlock standard, licensed by Strike Industries, front grip of Specna Arms design, trigger and manipulators that are selectors and body release, but also buffer tube. The whole body and the stock mount are made of good quality aluminium zinc alloy. Steel, apart from screws and pins, is used for the PDW stock guide, while polymer is used for iron sight, pistol grip and the buttstock. Going from the front of the replica, the first thing we'll find is a detachable flash hider. Underneath it, there is a standard 40mm counterclockwise thread, which allows us to mount such accessories as flash hiders, sound suppressors or tracer eliminators. The thread ends slightly before the start of the front, thanks to which there is no problem with mounting any suppressor. Speaking of the front, it's made of aluminium under license of the firearms manufacturer, Strike Industries, which confirms the logo on it. The front itself is in unlocked standard, which allows us to mount on it, for example, wrist rails, or accessories dedicated to this system, such as already mounted on the replica front grip designed by Specna Arms. If we do not want to use it, it can be unscrewed, which will free up space on the bottom of the front. But I must say that it's quite comfortable, so I rather leave it, and I think that many future users will do the same. The front has a short top rail at the front and a short section near the receiver. The space between them is empty, so you can comfortably hold the entire front, which is secured by 3 screws, and additionally supported by tabs, which should prevent it from rotating around the axis of the barrel. On the top wrist rail we'll find a standard for Specna polymer folding and adjustable iron sight, which can of course be removed. Going further, we'll reach the body fully designed by Specna for the X-series. The body gives a modern impression with its appearance and functions. Sharp edges and bold embossings make the body and its details look not only futuristic but also practical. On the body we can find such markings as the Specna Arms logo and inscriptions, X-series and 9x19mm, and the serial number of the replica. To this, the selector setting modes are described. On the other side, under the shell ejector window, the Specna Arms Industries inscription is visible. Being at this side, it's worth to focus for a moment on the shell ejector window. First of all, it does not have a flap, and additionally its size is more adapted for the ammunition written on the body, 9x19mm. Most PCC replicas have a standard AR-15 family upper receiver and such size of the shell ejector window, and only the magazine slot is changed for a pistol ammunition, such as in the WE01A, recently reviewed on the channel. Specna went further and designed the entire receiver for pistol ammunition. This does not particularly affect the functionality of the replica, but it's a very nice detail. After pulling back the reloading lever, the dummy bolt will retract and rotary style hop-up chamber will appear. To increase the power of the hop-up, turn the knob down. To decrease it, you need to turn it up. If you forget, there's an arrow drawn on the chamber in which direction to turn to increase the power. To release the dummy bolt, press the release button on the other side of the receiver. The trigger guard is very enlarged, which shall ensure trouble-free trigger operation even with thick gloves. The very large magazine release button can be pressed in several ways, and it's up to you which one you like the best. Going further, we reach a folding PDW stack, having a total of 4 adjustment points. Adjusting the stock is very easy, just press the button on the left side and you can adjust it. In addition, on the stock mount, we'll find a place for mounting a push-dot-sling mount. To pull the stock completely off, you need to press the right button, which will allow the stock to slide out completely. This way we get access to the place in buffer tube for the battery. I unscrew the plug and I can see the wiring of the gate Aster circuit ending with TDN's connector. As it happens with PDW stacks, also here we have a little space for the battery. All through doing a review of the SA-X02, which also has such a stack, I was able to fit a Turnigy Nanotech 11.1V 1000 mAh battery. I can't do it again now because I rewired the pack in the past and now it won't fit at all. If you're looking for a pack that will fit, Specna offers a small 11.1V 600 mAh LiPo pack that should fit without too much trouble, but be prepared that for a standard game such a small pack may not be enough and 2 may be the minimum. However, if you want to use larger packs, Specna offers a dedicated longer buffer tube, which can easily accommodate Turnigy Nanotech 11.1V 1200 mAh pack. The only disadvantage of such solution is that you lose the possibility to adjust the stock. I will always play with fully extended stock, so it doesn't bother me, but for others it may be a problem. The replica has a quick change spring system, which is quite easy to access. All you need to do is to take off the stock, unscrew the buffer tube, using an Allen wrench unscrew the screw in the tube, and pull off the whole stock mount. Now we have access to the spring guide. Using an Allen wrench I push the guide and turn it by 90 degrees, so that the guide along with the spring comes out of the replica and we can replace it with another one. It may look complicated, but to a skilled person the whole operation even in the field conditions should not take more than a few minutes. In the replica is already mounted a well-known pistol grip with a system of quick access to the motor. To do this I only squeeze the pistol grip base and tilt it to the side, and pull the tensioner out. The function may seem of little use until the plug of the motor falls off during the game and the nearest screwdriver is in the backpack in the car. The SMAG magazines themselves are at the same standard as the magazines for G&G ARP9 and the classic Army Nemesis X9 replicas, and therefore also the same as for the Well WE01A, which means the replica functions on them without any problems. SMAG from the set are made of durable polymer and have capacity of about 100 rounds. They sit in the replica with a slight play, and when the mag release is pressed, they fall out of the replica by themselves. I must also point out that they have very strong springs, so they should be able to handle feeding at high rate of fire. But after full charge you have to be careful not to hit anything with them, because they can shoot out few BBs. The selector is ambidextrous and has 3 standard setting modes: Safe, Semi, and Full Auto. In addition, the selector has minimum play and clearly jumps into modes, which I like very much. The selector worked quite easily, and I would even say sometimes too easily, as I found out during the game, when the selector switched by itself to continuous fire, and at other times was halfway to safe, so I could not fire. Solar trigger is flat and the shot falls about halfway through its movement. The reset is very short, which allows you to quickly fire consecutive shots on semi. As for the fit of the replica, it is of the highest level, and the only play we'll find is a standard on the stock, but it's something that cannot be avoided. The replica is equipped with Gate Aster MOSFET unit, and due to the fact that it is an advanced MOSFET circuit, it is possible to program it. To enter the programming mode, you need to switch the replica to semi and hold the trigger for about 7 seconds. Remember that you will fire a shot, so the programming should be done without BBs, aiming the replica at a safe place. When the replica enters the programming mode, it will inform us by vibration and we'll see blue light near the trigger. Each mode and their options have their own color and number of vibrations. When the selector is in the semi position, by pressing the trigger we change the functions, and these are fire modes, burst programming, battery protection and active brake. To enter a given function, switch the selector to auto mode. And to get out of the programming mode, you switch the selector to safe. The first function is fire modes, and here we can choose from safe, single fire, continuous fire, safe, binary mode, continuous fire. In this mode, the shot will be fired every time you press and release the trigger. And yes, I know that on the card, in this place there is a different mode. The difference is probably due to the fact that I updated Aster software while creating this review. Safe, single fire, single fire. Safe, single fire, burst. The burst, as I mentioned it, can be set and you can choose from the options. 3-round burst, 3-round burst, which can be stopped by releasing the trigger, five-round burst, five-round burst, which can be stopped by releasing the trigger. Another function is battery protection. It can be turned off, set to LiPo, which will prevent the battery from discharging completely, or LiPo with information when the voltage on the cell drops to the level of 3.2 volt. This is a standard setting and I recommend to use it. Replica in this mode will inform us by vibration of the motor during the game, what will be a signal for us to change the battery. Last we have the active brake. This is a function which prevents unwanted double shots on semi when using a weaker spring and a strong battery, by stopping the motor by giving it a voltage of opposite polarity. You can choose between auto and off mode. By standard is on auto and I recommend leaving it that way. These are the basic functions that can be programmed from the trigger and selector. If you would like to do more, thanks to the Blue Link or USB link adapter sold separately, we can connect the system to our phone or computer, which will give us many more functions to choose from. We will be able, among other things, to set the exact sensitivity of the trigger, so that, for example, the shot will be fired with minimal pressure. Set the precocking, which is the pretension of the spring, which speeds up the firing on semi. Or check the telemetry and read out any error codes if they occur. If you're interested in all of the options, I recommend downloading the GCS application and running it in the preview mode on the Aster V2 system with basic software, which will allow you to get acquainted with the options that the system has to offer from and possibly decide whether the standard programming is enough for you or you want something more. If you're interested in the Aster unit, its review is available on the channel. Just remember that it was created a while ago and some of the comments I had about the unit have been eliminated by updating the unit and the GCS application. As with every MOSFET, also here you must remember not to leave the battery connected after the game, like every circuit, so that the Aster consumes a little bit of current in the idle state. To be precise, less than 1 mA with the selector in safe and about 23 mA in other modes. It's not much, but still enough to drain the battery to zero after a long time. We know what the replica looks like and what functions it has. Now let's take a look inside. After removing the magazine, I can get down to disassembling the replica. And I start by unscrewing the front pin screw and knocking it out. I also peel off the sticker from the receiver. To take up the upper receiver, I slightly pull back the reloading lever and push the receiver forward. It should come off without too much trouble. We'll take a look at the lower receiver in a moment, first the upper. To pull out the barrel with the chamber, just pull it backwards. rotary style hop-up chamber is made of polymer. The Helion hop-up backing is so-called flat hop. It does not have any contact patch inside, and only thing you will find here is a stabilizing strip. The backing is of medium hardness, and for my taste could be a little bit softer and stickier. Instead of the usual round knob, the chamber is equipped with a flat knob for flat hop backing, thanks to which the contact surface between the BB and the backing is much larger, thanks to which you get a more powerful spin of the BB and greater repeatability of shots. The knob is much harder than in the first version of the replicas equipped with it, which should improve performance. The 603mm diameter aluminum precision barrel is 235mm long. Time for the lower receiver. I start by removing the stock. So I pull off the stock, unscrew the buffer tip, I pull off the stock mount, I unscrew the screw in the stock guide and pull it off. By the way, I pull out the guide together with the main spring. The guide has a metal base and a polymer cone, and has a bearing. The spring itself has a regular coil pitch. Then I remove the pistol grip. I start by opening the grip, pulling out the tensioner. Then I unplug the connectors from the motor and pull out the motor. This is a high torque motor with 22 TPA winding. The magnets are stronger than in a regular Specna motor, but not mega strong. What is left is to unscrew the 4 screws in the pistol grip and pull off the grip itself. Then I knock out the rear pin and the trigger pin. The selectors themselves I screwed on the Allen screw and both have a small spring and a ball, thanks to which they are stopped in the setting mode. Of course, you do not need to remove the selectors to pull out the gearbox, but only set them in the semi-mode, and the gearbox should be easy to pull up after removing the bolt release. Before we look into the gearbox, I would like to talk about the selectors. They are connected to the gearbox by these gears on a pin which goes through the shell. To remove them, I have to unscrew a very small Allen screw and break the pin out of the gearbox, and this is how it looks like. If we would like to change the shell for another one, it must have a place prepared for this element, such as the Ion shell from Gate. After installing it in the body, we can see that it fits without any problems, and the selectors still function as they should. There is also no problem with inserting the spring guide. The only problem I encountered is with the bolt release, as it does not fit the Ion shell. This is due to the fact that the shell in this place has more material than the standard shell, so the release does not fit. And in the case of the Ion shell, we have a choice of either giving up the bolt release and removing it along with the notch, or modifying the shell. Other than that, it's not much of a problem to replace a standard shell with something else. But let's see what we get in the standard gearbox. The Orion shell has rounded corners of the cylinder, which should reduce the chance of damaging it here. The ball bearings have a diameter of 8mm. The shell of course has some grease. There's not much of it, but the parts are not dry either. The solid trigger mounted in the replica is created specifically to work with the Gate Aster MOSFET unit. Thanks to its design, the system is able to detect its movement with incredible accuracy. The MOSFET has no moving parts, and its operation is based on optical sensors. The corresponding sensor is responsible for detecting the position of the trigger, another pair for detecting the position of the sector gear. While on the other side we find the last sensors that are responsible for detecting the position of the selector plate. The selector plate is polymer and has slightly different shape than the standard plate you will find in Specna Arms replicas with a single selector. The gears are standard sinter with gear ratio of 18:1. The sector gear has a delayer, the spur gear is completely standard, and the bevel gear has 4 anti-reversal teeth. The gears are shimmed with minimal play and spin very well without unnecessary resistance. As for the pneumatic components, the replica is fitted with a polymer piston with a full metal jaw. On it we'll find a polymer vented piston head with a bearing. The Type 2 cylinder is made of aluminum and I did not find any burrs on it. The aluminum cylinder head has 2 sealing O-rings and a sizable bumper of medium hardness. It sits with the cylinder with slight play. The aluminum nozzle is about 21.4mm long and has 1 O-ring. The tappet plate is standard and is made of fairly flexible plastic. As for the seal of the system, here I was disappointed, because even without the nozzle, the system did not want to seal. The culprit is the piston head. I tried to choose the right O-ring, but none provided seal. So for the test I used a stock piston with aluminum head from SA-X02, which sealed perfectly. With this piston, the system had no problem with passing the syringe test. Without the nozzle, with the nozzle inserted, or even extended. The angle of engagement, it's not ideal, but acceptable. We know what's in the gearbox, and now let's see what performance it will give us. Chronograph and shooting tests were performed before disassembling the replica, and on set hop-up for 0.30 gram Specna Arms EDGE BBs and on a Tarnage Nanotech 11.1V 1200 mAh battery. On the stronger spring, the replica generated an average power of around 1.02 joules, and the spread between the highest and the lower result was 0.06 joules. The rate of fire was just over 20 rounds per second. For the weaker M90 spring from the kit, the average was about 0.88 joules, while the spread between the highest and the lowest result was 0.08 joules. On the weaker spring, the rate of fire increased slightly and was minimally over 21 rounds per second. Shooting test, I start at a distance of 30 meters and shoot a target slightly larger than a human torso. At this distance, of course, there is no problem to hit the target and the spread itself is not large. At a distance of 40 meters, there is no big problem to hit the target. Admittedly, the spread has increased and flyers appear, but most of them hit the target. At the distance of 50 meters, we see a bigger change instead. The spread has increased significantly, and you can see the uneven curl of the BBs. Some fall under the target and some fly over it. But still, hitting the target from this distance is still possible. From a distance of 60 meters, hitting the target of the size of a human torso is still possible. Admittedly, I had to take corrections and I'm higher than the previous test, but many of the bullets not only reach, but even hit the target. Nevertheless, I would estimate the real effective range at about 40 meters, maybe stretching to 50 meters, while the maximum range is about 60 meters, so quite good for a replica of this power. The replica was with me on one game and performed well. At typical CQB distances, hitting the opponents was not particularly difficult, even without sight, and I even had some successful shots at about 40 to 50 meters. I did, however, experience small problems with the hop-up. At some point it decided to stop working, and I had to adjust it during the action. And as I mentioned it, I had situations when the selector also switched itself and I fired 2 bursts while playing on semi. Fortunately, the MOSFET can be easily reprogrammed and I quickly changed it to only semi and the problem disappeared. Specna Arms SA-X02 EDGE 2.0 is a replica that introduces some freshness to the Specna Arms portfolio. The replica is modern both in terms of design and functionality. Sharp edges and ribs gives it an interesting look, and the materials from which it is made are of high quality and together with the fit of the replica make it really good to hold in hands. In the functionality department, the replica offers everything we are used to from Specna. We have quick access system to the motor and a quick spring change system. There is also programmable gate Aster MOSFET, which apart from the basic functions, allow a bit of more advanced programming if we need it. The shell and parts of the pneumatics make a good impression, and I am sure that in the standard configuration they will serve a really long time. The only thing that might disappoint is the lack of the seal on the piston head, which with the perfect seal of the rest of the elements make me feel a slight distaste. No less, this may be a problem only of my replica, because it should be remembered that it's the first release of this model. The performance of the replica on the chronograph is typically CPQB, because let's not deceive ourselves, it's a replica made for this purpose. But this does not prevent it from shooting a 0.30 gram BBs at distance up to 60 meters, not to mention its effective range, which should be described between 40 to 50 meters. During the game it performed very well, and the only thing I can, let's say, complain about it is the very sensitive selector, which is easy to switch by accident.
So what do I think of this SA-X02 from Specna Arms? I expected quite a lot from this model, and most of my expectations have been met. I was hoping for a compact all-metal replica with not much weight, but with high-quality workmanship and good quality materials. And that's what I got. Externally, I don't have anything to complain about. The replica has no play on parts that shouldn't have it. Yes, we have some play on the stock, but it is absolutely normal for any replica with PDW stock. Functionally, it is also very good. I like the fact that Specna uses a standard magazines that other manufacturers also use. The attached front grip is comfortable and it's likely to stay permanently on this replica. As for the manipulators, of course I like that the selector is ambidextrous and so elegantly jumps into positions. It could only work a little harder because I happened to accidentally switch it to other modes during game. It's nice that there is a working dummy bolt catch because it makes it easier to adjust hop-up. And of course I like the flat solar trigger, because I just like flat triggers. The amount of space for the battery is quite small, which is already a standard in replicas with such PDW stocks. Fortunately, Specna sells a long battery compartment in which a normal battery fits, and I will use this solution. As for the gearbox, I generally knew what to expect and was only disappointed with the seal on the piston head. But I hope that this is not a standard and happened to me only. In the end, I am satisfied with the replica and it will take place of the SA-E10 as my replica for CQB. But is the X series right for you? If you're looking for a well-built and modern PCC replica for short distances engagements, a replica that will be suitable to tuning but also will do its job in stock, it seems to me that the X series is right for you. Finally, I can't help to mention the price, and here are 2 words of explanation. Unfortunately, the creation of a replica virtually from scratch is an expensive and lengthy process, which in the case of the X series took more than 2 years, and which, especially in the current situation in the world, strongly affects its price. And so at the time of writing this review, the model X02 costs around 391 euros. It's not little, and I will say frankly that I expected a different price. Is it worth so much? This I leave for you to judge. No less worth remembering that with my discount code you can reduce its price up to 12% at Gunfire. The code can be found in the description of the video. That will be all for today. Let me know in the comments, did you like today's review and what do you think of the SA-X02 replica, and if you have one, how does it perform for you? That will be all for today. Thanks for watching and see you next time.